Alfie,
James,
welcome.
thank you.
Oh.
Lovely to be here.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant. So, I think we first met properly at Sunfest, and I thought I've got to get you on. So here you are, Alfie Joey, the Speakeasy guy. So, Alfie, I think when we start the podcast, the first question we always ask, and it's in the name of Space Northeast, in the name of what we do, is how are you doing?
I'm a bit tired. I've just had probably the most 2 hectic months that I can remember, in a good way.
Okay.
But the chaos and the fallout from that, you got to watch it. And I had a long drive to a wedding last night, which was lovely. It was horrible weather, and I was nodding at the wheel, and I'm thinking I've got to watch myself here. So, in all honesty, I'm knackered, but good knackered. Good knackered. I had 2 great months of work, but then you got to watch what happens at home and what happens in your life and what happens with your health.
You do. Good. I think when I ask that question, it's always interesting because I'm always looking for some people, if we're going to get a, yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah.
Or who's actually going to be, who's
That
going to
usually
answer.
would be me, by the way. I'm great.
Yeah, I'm absolutely fine. It's good to give an honest answer. So yeah, Alfie, you are very well known in Sunderland. You know, you are the epitome of what I wanted this podcast to really be about, and that's about bringing, you know, Northeast men, Northeast people, to talk about their history, about their, you know, overcoming the challenges and adversity and the different stories, to try and share that with our listeners, the Northeast men. So I think first off, as we do in any interaction, I think it's important that our listeners and me, we get to know who you are. Mm-hmm. So if you want to tell us from the beginning, what was young Alfie like? Mm-hmm. Where did he grow up?
I do think I'm a lucky lad. Very, very lucky. Lucky where I grew up. Lucky who my parents were. Lucky who my brother and sister were.
Yeah.
Amazing family. Amazing culture I was born into, history and heritage. So I was born in a pit village about 7 miles east of Durham called Thornley. And my dad was a coal miner. All the blokes in my village were coal miners. Mm-hmm. And obviously it was very busy. It was thriving when I was little. And then obviously not that long later, the pits all started to shut and everything changed. And so that was the backdrop of my upbringing. Strangely, for some people, but it was very normal to me, most people would follow your dad down the pit, or you do something sort of in a working class village that's, you know, a carpet fitter or some whatever. I'm thinking about jobs me mates went on to do. But from a very young age, I wanted to be a priest.
Right, okay.
We weren't from a religious family. It was a bit confusing for everybody, but then it just became normal because I just kept saying the same answer when people always ask you when you're little, what do you want to be when you grow up? And your teacher asks you to draw in the book, and most people draw cowboys or space people or whatever. And I kept drawing a priest and kept saying that's what I want to do. And I cannot explain it really, other than we didn't have social workers when I was a kid, and I was very boringly nice. So when I did the paper round, I'd like knock on people's windows, old people's windows. Do you want any shopping doing and stuff like that? And that was almost the role of, I saw the priest doing that, and I thought, oh, well, that might be a job for me. And then I started going to church with an old auntie, and it's a bit showbiz as well, because you put some clobber on, you got an audience. And I thought I could do that job. And that's it. And my dad was a coal miner, so he found it very odd, very difficult. But Billy Elliot, very similar to the Billy Elliot story. I remember my dad crying his eyes out the night before I went away to train to be a priest, because I went away to this, like a Hogwarts for mini wizards priests. Okay. And, you know, it meant me leaving home when I was 13.
No coming under the stairs, though.
Yeah. So, yeah, it was just a straight, looking back, it must have been very weird for me dad and my mum to go back to their friends and say, oh, he's gone away to be a priest. He's not here anymore. That must have been very strange.
It's very interesting, I think, because I think when we talk about values, what you've said from a very young age is that you've noticed, and you said boringly nice.
Oh, I was dull as dishwater. Yeah, I've had that very often throughout my comedy career as well, people have always described me as the nicest guy in comedy or the nicest guy. Who wants nice on the gravestone?
Yeah.
Nobody is the answer.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's
Why
there
is
you
that?
go.
It's strange. Because I think if we look at, you've identified in yourself that your values were nice, and then you've seen priesthood as something that typifies who you are in your internal values. I think it's really interesting that you've noticed that as a child, because I think it took me until I was probably 25, 26 to be able to notice that. Look at my own values and think, okay, wait a second, I'm not living in line with these here.
Yeah.
But you've gone as a child, you've gone, okay, actually I see myself.
Yeah.
There. Really
I wonder whether it's that thing. I don't know if you've heard of that book, The Selfish Gene.
Yes.
Where is there anything truly altruistic?
Yeah, exactly.
But you do give a life of service, and you do, when you go off to train to be a priest, you take a vow of poverty and celibacy and obedience, and there is an element of sacrifice and selflessness to it. The flip side of that is I never had to worry about a roof over my head or bills.
Yeah.
Even though I didn't get any money, you couldn't walk out and buy a CD and stuff like that. But at the same time, I never had to worry about money. So, but you were sort of living a life of service I did that for 15 years,
So what was the inroad then? So when you were going through school and then you decide, okay, this is it, this is what I'm going to do. How did that come about?
So I wanted to do it from the age of about 7. And the parish priest and my old headmaster, who I loved, there was a man of values, Mr. Smith, one of the idols in my life. He's such an inspirational figure, so encouraging. And I think I always tell people, try and remember people like that in your life, not the cynics and not the sarcastic people. Or look back and think, who were the people who patted you on the back and pushed you in the right direction? They're the ones you should be listening to. Mr. Smith was one of them. And he encouraged me, and he just kept saying, are you sure you want to do this? So he came round the house, spoke to my mum and dad, and they all thought it'd be better if I went to Peterlee, St. Bede's Comprehensive for a few years first. And if you're definitely sure after that, we'll get a place for you in this college. And that was it. I was still absolutely sure. And off I went. And it was all I thought I would ever do.
Really?
It was, and that's all I ever did do for 15 years. So, fast forward to when I was 30, that was about when I left.
So what was it like as a young boy being in there? Because you've as a young age you've taken a step out of the traditional pathway, including away from your family. So what was that?
It was very, I think, very hard on my family. And my brother was 6 years younger than me, and I remember the first time I came home and he burst into tears, ran up and hugged me, and I took all that for granted a bit and didn't realise how much my mum missed us. I was away for Christmases and stuff like that as I got older as well, and that was tough really for them. I remember doing a degree while I was in the order, and I can remember, I've never told this one before. My mum got a dress for the graduation, and because nobody in my family had, our Patricia had got a degree, but I think I was the first lad to maybe get a degree, and my mum had a dress for the graduation, and I decided not to go for the graduation because I thought, I don't want to be up the pecking order in the house with a picture of me in a cap and gown, and my brother and sister thinking, they always used to say I was the golden boy anyway. So I didn't want that to drive that home. So I phoned my mum and said, I'm not going to go into the graduation. I've got to do a job or some work. And of course, that was a stupid thing really, because she'd have been proud, but also, ultimately, even if they had a couple of digs at me, my brother and sister would have been proud as well.
Of course they would have been. I think quite often our own interpretation of what other people think stops us from taking some big life leaps. And I think often when you do take them leaps, you're often surprised.
Yeah.
I think when I started Space Northeast, one of my biggest worries and the biggest obstacle for me to overcome was the opinions of my friends.
Yeah.
A lot of my mates, we went to the football together, went to the away matches together. A lot of them lads are, scaffolders or teachers or whatever,
Gotta think.
what they're going to think. And that when I did it, when I set it up and I announced it, we went out on the Friday for a few beers down Sunnyside, and there was about 10 of us. Every single one of them give me a hug. Every single one. So I think it's, what I've learned since is that all the best things in life are on the other side of them little hurdles, and especially when it's to do with how other people feel.
And if they don't give you a hug, what does that say about them?
It tells you everything you need to know.
So I remember, so I went to London. I got moved about a bit. When you were in the order, you went where you got sent. So you're in a different monastic setting or religious house. And I got sent to London to do a degree in drama. And I thought, I'm not going to tell the students I'm in a monastery or a religious house, because they'll stop swearing or they go, easy, don't tell that story.
Yeah.
And in my year was Alan Carr, the comedian.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we did the same comedy course.
Oh, really?
And Angelos Epithemou.
Wow.
Do you know him?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
So me and Dan Skinner, we were best mates. So we lived we lived together.
Wow.
And all three of us did comedy for the first time at a comedy course.
That's incredible.
And so, but when I started this degree, I thought, I'm not going to say what I'm doing. I'll just go back to the religious house the monastery or whatever you want to call it. And but it got harder and harder because I got very friendly with them.
Yeah, of course.
And I was living a lie. I wasn't telling them where I was going. And as you get friendly with a gang of people, they're all, come on, we're all going to the pub.
Yeah.
So I'd go, but I'd have to get the tube back to get to Battersea, South London. And after later, I'd go, I've got to get back. And they go, well, we'll all come to yours. And we're, well, I can't really. It's, the people I live with might be a bit. So I was living a lie, essentially. And then after months or whatever, I thought, I've got to tell them. It's, this is getting too hard now. So you have one of them sessions where a lecturer says, right, we're all going to say something about ourselves that nobody else knows. And you go around and somebody says, oh, I don't like yogurt or whatever. And it got to me. And I went, I'm a monk in a religious order. And just what you said, all of them came up, they're hugging me. Some of them were crying tears. It was very moving, but the support I got was not it was more than I expected. And what was brilliant was they all carried on swearing and all carried on. We knew there was something we couldn't put our finger on.
Yeah.
And almost made us closer.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
And it was after that I started to decide to, leave and move on.
Well, that's when you decided to leave the order, was it?
Yes. Basically, I remember it was doing the stand-up comedy. I'd never, because we were the first university course to have a module in stand-up comedy, Middlesex University. And it was an electric feeling. Right. And it was, wow, that's what, as a kid, I loved comedy. As a kid, I'd enter all the talent shows, but I never thought, being from a pit village, that was a potential career. That was like, dream on, mate. Yeah. You don't do that from here. Yeah. It's more plausible to train to be a priest and then join a religious order than it is to be in show business. Yeah. That doesn't happen to kids like you. And so I would watch things like Opportunity Knocks with my dad. And my dad loved comedy as well. And we'd watch sitcoms and we loved them. And I thought, I'd love being a sitcom. And I ended up in 2 sitcoms. I watched Opportunity Knocks, New Faces, and thought, I'd love to do them. And I ended up on Britain's Got Talent. Right. Okay. And I tell people it is possible. If I can do it, anyone can do it.
Do you think it was just your ability to step out of the norm and go for it? Because I think getting into stand-up comedy that must be an extremely terrifying venture. Like that is judgment, and that's what we all feel, I think, most, isn't it? That for better or worse.
Believe me, I had some severe judgments because the metric for the way you measure stand-up, I think, is what sets it apart from all the other performance skills. So if you do a talk, if you do Shakespeare, if you do music, people tend to clap at the end, no matter how rocky it's been.
Of course, yeah.
But in comedy, the measurement is laughter during. Yeah. Not applause at the end, it's laughter during. So if you don't get laughter during, it's failed. And you probably won't get an applause at the end either. You walk off stage to the sound of your own feet, and it's horrible. And so I had that lots, and that's normal. But when you have a stinker, you can't wait to do it again. If you're weird and wired like I am, or any comedian, you have to be able to take the bad ones to get to the good ones, because that's part of the process. That's part of the learning process.
Of course it is.
And but it doesn't feel good. It hurts, you know.
Was that in you as a kid?
Yes, I would get up and do talent shows. You know, I was quite fearless, I suppose, as a performer. I would get up and try anything. And I remember coming joint last in a talent show when I was a kid, and I sang a Chuck Berry song that I'd heard, and I thought it was a comedy song. And it was My Ding-a-ling. And I don't know if you know the song.
Yeah, I do, yeah.
My ding-a-ling, my ding-a-ling, want you to play with my ding-a-ling. I didn't know it was about somebody's willy. And I thought it was just a funny song about a bell. Because it was a live recording that was on the radio, and everybody's laughing.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, that'll work.
Perfect.
So I get up to do my song, and I sing My Ding-a-ling. The teachers to the side are laughing their heads off. I thought, I've nailed this. And then they come to the points, and I come last. And I'm thinking, how could I possibly come last? I've got laughs. They were laughing at me all the way through. And it wasn't until years later, but it didn't put me off. And I entered the next one, And when I heard the song when I was growing up, I was going, flippin' heck, that's filth. I had no idea, in all innocence, what it was about. I didn't know it had been banned and all this sort of stuff till years later. But it was just, I think I did have sort of a thick skin. I still do, you know, and you have to. But it still hurts, you know, when it doesn't go well.
Yeah,
or it can confuse you, or...
That is honestly, I'm trying really hard not to burst out of that, because I'm picturing knowing what you're like, and picturing a young Alfie Joey on stage singing My Ding.
With all my heart, you know, just this'll work. Here we go.
How old were you when you did
that was about 8 or 9 or something. And I would just have a go.
That's what it's all about. I think, you know, growing up in a pit village, do you think that probably influenced your... Because I think you've got to be very well socialised and to be able to deal with people. I think growing up in a pit village, do you remember what it was like when it was busy? Is it... Because it was probably I imagine it was around about the late 70s, early 80s when things started.
So my dad and my mum got married very young. My mum was 19 when she had me. And at the time they had me, my dad had took a couple of years out from the pit to run the local working men's club. So my first home was Thornley Working Men's Club, and it was a big club.
Yeah.
So they had entertainers coming who were on telly. You know, the concert room was so big. You had Paul Daniels, people like that, coming to do a turn at night, and big singers who had hits in the charts and stuff doing a turn at the club. And I can't remember this, I was too young, but apparently as a very little lad I would be on the stage playing with a mic and doing Tom Jones impressions and stuff like that when I was very small. So as I grew up, I had people from the village going, oh, we can remember seeing you on stage when you were little and stuff like that. So it was something I'd always been fascinated by, loved, was encouraged to do. So that was my memory of growing up. It was that kind of atmosphere.
I think you need that, and you commented on that when you're talking about your old headmaster as well. I think you need that level of structural support in your society and your community, don't you?
Oh, absolutely.
I think
absolutely.
It's one of the things.
The other side of it is, I can remember getting up to sing in the Catholic club when I was about 18 or 19, and a bloke coming up to me and saying, you're not as good as your father, you know, and very, very snipey way. You would get that as well.
Yeah, of course.
You get that.
Of course you do.
And that's there.
Yeah.
And you'd get that, you know, when you start doing comedy and stuff like that, there's that side as well. And I always say to people, you know, listen to the positive people.
Yeah, of course.
You'll have people willing to tear you down. They'll be pound to penny.
Yeah, of course.
But it's the positive people you need to listen to.
And they'll be there whether you do it or not. I think whether you try to do something good or not. My childhood was one of my really transformative emotions from being a young child was shame. And that was because what my first experience with this was, very much like you, I was very enthusiastic, outgoing, extroverted, super just energetic. And I was like, you always called good as gold. James is good as gold. And I remember my first school trip, we went to Downhill.
Yeah.
You're familiar with Downhill?
Yeah.
So we went, we'd been out all day, gorge walking. We came back and we had our school disco on the night, so at Derwent Hill. And we were all doing the time warp, let's do the time warp. So we were all doing that. I was right at the front, right at the centre.
Giving it some.
Really giving it some.
Yeah.
I mean, I was going for it. I knew those girls there. I was about 10-year-old, knew those girls there. And, I was just sort of starting to get into that era of my life. And there was a guy who worked at Derwent Hill standing at the front. He was wearing his outdoor clothes, his Downhill badge, so I knew he was staff. And he was just staring. And I mean, staring at me. And I was doing, and I all of a sudden became conscious of what I was doing and what my actions were. And I was like, am I stepping out of line here? What am I doing? Should I be doing this? For a child, you start to think, what is this? And he came over and he said, in a really condescending way, he went, you're really enthusiastic, aren't you? Sniped me. And I thought, in that moment, I went in myself, stopped dancing. And I really, I think I'd went off and played pool with my friends or something. That was my first feeling of shame. And I had that a lot through school, through specific people in my community, in my circle, who whenever I would step out of line or step out of the norm, they'd bring you back in with that feeling of shame. And I think you grew up not wanting to step outside of that. And it wasn't until I got older where I actually realised, it says a lot more about
absolutely
who you are
does.
and where you're at than what it ever said about me.
I've got you just reminded me of two incidents when I was doing the Impressions double act that we did on Britain's Got Talent. We were rehearsing it at night in the BBC because there was rooms I could use there. And I remember in newsreaders, it was on telly. And he was always quite a nice guy, but what are you doing with all those hats and wigs and everything? I said, we're just mucking about doing YouTubes of impressions. He went, bit old for that, aren't you? And he, I don't think he meant to be hurtful, but he was just confused as to why on earth would you be bothering with that now? As if to say, that's over for you, that sort of stuff. And it was those YouTubes that Britain's Got Talent asked us to do the show because of.
Really?
And I remember when I got the breakfast show on the radio, because I was doing a light afternoon show where we played music, and then the shift to the breakfast show was quite big because it was journalism and you're interviewing politicians and heavyweight stuff sometimes. And this guy buzzed in from another studio and went, "What do you know about journalism?" And I just went, "Oh, not as much as you." I would just give a friendly answer. But I should have said, "What do you know about your business?" But also I started to think, well, should I be doing that? Should I be doing this now? But then I was equipped in a totally different way to do the job, and it hopefully proved right.
Do you think your horribly niceness? Do you think your niceness allowed you to deal with that?
I do. Yes, I do. I have a philosophy that doesn't always work, and it's not right for everyone. And sometimes people do need to be told. But I kill people with kindness. That's often worked for me. If you just go back to somebody who's been, sometimes you go to venues, like when I was doing comedy, and you might have a committee man or somebody who's just, churlish, and they just keep being nice to them. They don't quite know how to handle it. And they've got nowhere to go.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
And certainly some of these tougher venues where they're used to confrontation, they're used to people giving them aggro. So you go in, you're quite nice. They're instantly suspicious.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
But then eventually, I used to enjoy, by the end of the night, them coming around and going, "Oh, this has been quite nice, haven't you? We didn't expect."
Yeah,
they're not used to that sort of niceness on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
So eventually, you charm them with just being relentlessly positive.
Yeah, relentlessly positive. I love that. That's something I was always probably ashamed of as a young man. I was a nice person. I always felt like I always struggled to work out where my skills were, where my worth was. I really couldn't fathom. But I always knew what I enjoyed was people. I was a people person. I loved being nice to people. I loved helping. It was just something that made me, yourself. Something that makes you feel, this is who I am.
Yeah.
That's where it always was for me. It was that niceness, and I think when you grew up, especially as a young man. I mean, I grew up in a pit village as well, at Silksworth in Sunderland, just on the outskirts. And I think the school I went to as well, in St Aidan's, is an all boys school, secondary school. I think when you are nice, I think sometimes it can be
seen as a weakness.
Yeah, maybe a weakness and something to be laughed at. I think.
Yeah.
But I know how actually, as you grow and you learn, especially when you're involved in business, actually who you are as a person is probably one of the most important skills that you can have.
Yeah.
How you deal with people and how you behave with people.
Oh, absolutely.
Massively.
Yeah.
So I think if we look at you went in the monastery and then you've got into stand-up comedy.
Radio.
Wow.
Yep.
So radio, how did that happen? Because they're three huge changes.
Yeah. I didn't have any strategic plan. My advice to young people or to people in business just making the way is say yes to everything until you have to say no. Because at some point you can't keep saying yes to everything, and there's a cut-off point. But I just said yes to everything. So I would not turn anything down, and I was doing comedy, and it was like I was surfing a wave, but it was just loads of hard work, loads of gigs, loads of phone bashing. And then I would just get offered things. And just, if you're nice to work with, I think it makes a massive difference. But I was always polite. I would always over-deliver. I would always give more than was necessary. I would always, do you want to be in this sketch group? Do you want to be in this sort of double act? Do you want to be in, yep. And we'd always overwrite and overperform and over-deliver. And then people just go, well, he's quite good to work with. So I started getting offered things that I hadn't even asked for because I was just there and I was just turning up and doing stuff. So I got offered, do you want to audition for Coronation Street? I was in a couple of episodes because the casting people were in the Comedy Store when I was doing my stuff, and they're just at the back of the room. They went, do you want to do this? I started writing stuff at the BBC, all for free. I'd just turn up and just do stuff at, it was then Oxford Road, Manchester, big building. And the comedy unit was based there. So they'd get us in and we were writing stuff and trying stuff, and we got a pilot for Radio 4. And then the same people were producing a sitcom with Johnny Vegas, and they said, do you want to audition for this? I didn't ask. I wasn't banging on any doors. The same at Granada Studios. They'd seen me. They said, do you want to do some TV warm-ups? I became a TV warm-up man for sketch shows, sitcoms. And it was just constantly being around, being busy, being nice to work with that just kept all of this going. It was like a furnace and you just keep chucking coal on the fire.
Yeah, definitely.
And then eventually a mate of mine who... great mate, Justin Moorhouse, got a great podcast. I'm on it every Monday. He was in Phoenix Nights, and Justin had a good radio show, big radio show in Manchester. And the guy who initially put him on the radio had taken over at BBC Newcastle, and he said, do you know anyone from the Northeast who might be a good fit for the afternoon show? And he mentioned me, so I went up, did some tryout shows. But again, I planned that show. I got guests ready for it. I over-prepared and over-delivered. And he pretty much gave me the job on the spot. And
amazing.
That was it, really. There was no sort of real... I wasn't banging on the door. I was just going where things led. And it was just by saying yes lots, working lots, and just being nice to work with.
Yeah, being seen. I think it sounds like you're being very bold. I think, and that's something I try and carry with me when I'm in all of my work, is try and be bold. Because I think, putting yourself, I think for anybody listening, there'll probably be people listening to this who aren't maybe in a job they enjoy, or they're wondering about their purpose in life, their direction in life. Where am I heading? And they'll look at someone like you, Alfie, and they'll say, well, look, he's done this. He's been in comedy. He's been on radio. He's been on TV and Britain's Got Talent. And they'll all feel like some geniusly constructed, crafted plan, which has worked meticulously and perfectly to plan. But it's not how it goes, is it?
I'm very careful, James, that I do think it's a curse being stuck in a job you don't like, because it happens to so many people. And I know my wife's been in that situation. And lots of people I was at university with finished the degree and just went, don't know what to do, and just got stuck. And it's very easy to get stuck. And I think I'm very lucky the way I'm wired. I think some of it is down to that. However, I do think it is worth taking a chance. I do think it is worth taking a deep breath and giving something a go, and having a go at something you've always wanted to do. What's the worst that can happen?
Exactly.
What's the worst that can happen? You go back to a similar job to the one you didn't like.
Exactly.
But I would guess if you give something a go, even if it's just as a side hustle, and build it slowly, build it on the side, you've got to take a chance and do it, because that question will be with you. You will have heard the story about the nurses in care homes who were interviewed about what is the biggest regret that old people have, and it is not taking a chance, not doing a job that they wish they'd done, and just sitting in. And I remember being at the BBC with a guy who did a show, and he said towards the, and it was a great show, and he said, "Oh, forget about the tension, think about the pension." And I thought, that's sad.
Yeah.
That's really sad.
Yeah.
But, you weren't a road sweeper. You weren't my brother's a forklift truck driver in all weathers.
Yeah.
You had a job on the radio.
Of course.
But if you're that unhappy, or just find something, search for it till you get it. Because it doesn't last long. I'm late 50s now, and it's gone so quickly.
Of course, yeah.
And there's still tons of things I want to do.
Yeah, of course.
But I just look at people. I remember someone else at the BBC again saying, not long till I get my pension. And I'm thinking, flipping heck, and not happy in what you're doing. And I think that job was, when you strip it down, you find stories and you tell them in an interesting way. That's working at the BBC, when you get it right down to the very nub of it.
Yeah.
But this person, I was thinking, if you just wait for your pension, you might not get there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You might just die.
Yeah.
Or you might hang around for decades for that pension, and then you've got it. But you look back and you think, I just waited for 3 decades doing something I didn't like doing.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
So I think it is just try and find something you like. What sets your heart on fire? What do you actually enjoy? Just do it as a hobby.
Definitely.
Do it as a hobby. Give yourself something to look forward to.
Yeah, definitely. We talk often about, when we've talked about this today, around values. I think it's probably the most important tool you can use when you're looking at which direction your life's going to take. So, for an example of that, let's say me. I was at one point working, I did biomedical science at university. So I was working in a lab, and it was pipetting things in and out. It was, it sounds a lot better than it was. Poorly paid, very little contact with people, and you just pipetting stuff in and out of tubes. Now, if I think about what my values are as a person, and these are things typically I think are in you from when you're born. I'm relatively extroverted. I enjoy working with people, and people make me thrive. That's where I'm best, is, relatively creative. So if I'm working with people, that's when I feel my creativity flow, and I think that's when you get the best out of me. Projects, managing teams, whatever it is, people is what I need. But I was in this, I was working in this lab just pipetting, and I remember thinking to myself, I was going, I'm not living in line with who I am here. And if I think about my dad, my dad was a bricklayer from 17 until he was in his 40s, and then he became an astronomer. So
Wow.
yeah, I mean, what a
There's a
transformation.
change in
There's
lane.
a change.
Yeah,
Exactly.
brilliant.
Bricklayer's Guide to the
Yeah.
Galaxy. So he was very much, he loved the stars, loved the universe, and that was something that inspired him for his whole life. But he was bricklaying. Something inside, once again, was just not in line. His values were not in line with what he was doing. So I think if you are working on a construction line, you are working in a shop or whatever it is. So say you are working with things and you are a people person. You've got to start working with people. That's the place to start. That's where you've got to move. If you are working with people and you're a things person, you've got to start moving towards somewhere else.
Yeah.
So I think your values are a really good compass. It'll not tell you where you're going to end up. It'll not tell you what you've got to do.
Yeah.
But it'll tell you where you've got to head, where you've got to point.
I would add that all of the times I moved direction or tried something, and this phrase is used in business a lot. It's used in against people who are sole traders or self-employed. When people say, "Well, it's all right for you. You do what you want. It's all right for you. You sit in a nice chair and just chat to people behind a mic, or it's all right for you. You just tell jokes, or it's all right for you, etc." And that is often said by people you know and love as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
What they never say is, and this is the biggest part of it, I think, what they never say is, it's all right for you, you've worked bloody hard.
Exactly.
Because and that's the bit I think I left it out in my TED Talk. Well, I did mention it in my TED Talk, but not enough, is take a risk, take a jump, but to do that, you've got to put so much work into it.
You do, of course.
And especially if you're self-employed, it's so hard.
Yeah,
it's rock hard.
Yeah.
And that's what people don't get, I think, when certainly when they work in the public sector or do something at the BBC, they look at you and go, well, it's all right for you, you can do that. And so they'll say, oh, it's all right for you, you've got confidence, it's all right for you. But I've had to work through lack of confidence, nerves.
Absolutely.
I am quite shy, and I am bizarrely not a people person in the way I think you've described yourself. So I went to a wedding last night and I was nervous about going into a wedding reception, going, I'll have to talk to people and it's just going to be a little bit awkward. I know them all, I love them all.
It's interesting, that, isn't it?
But in a group of people, I find it quite awkward. I'm fine on stage.
Yeah.
But if I've got to sit at a table of about 10 people at an awards dinner or something like that, I find it very awkward, very
Why do you
hard.
think that is, Alfie?
Because I used to be, you described yourself as extrovert. I was high extrovert when I was young, probably to the point where I was a bit annoying.
Yeah.
Maybe a lot annoying. And we did a personality test at seminary called the Myers-Briggs.
Yes, I've heard of that, yeah.
Which it's really interesting. I found it absolutely fascinating. I was very honest with it. I threw all my stuff out there. And I was high extrovert. And we did an exercise where we put all the extroverts in one side of the room and all the introverts in the other side of the room. We had to describe each other. So we were calling them boring bastards and they were calling us loudmouth swats or whatever, Yeah. So it was just an exercise in trying to work from your shadow side. How do I come across about awareness?
Of course, yeah.
And I realised I had a stunning lack of awareness at quite a young age. So I started to work at it, and I remember when you do Myers-Briggs, you have 4 letters. So I was ENT, I think I was ENPS or something.
Okay.
And the E was high extrovert. And at the time, I was doing prison visiting with another lad. I was very quiet. He was high introvert. And it used to irritate me. So I'd be talking all the way in the car, because he's not talking. I'll just talk. I'll fill the gaps. And we got to Durham prison, where we used to host a discussion group with murderers and people,
of course, yeah.
it was a remand prison. And it was tough because we were young. We were out of our depth, really, looking back.
Absolutely.
And I would run the whole discussion group, and we always tried to keep it very light and fluffy, so because no matter what you brought up, it would come back to the conditions the prison was like. It was awful.
Yeah.
I mean, mate was hardly saying a word. So I was running the whole thing, chatting away. We do the Myers-Briggs course, and I thought all the time, I've been thinking, I wish he'd talk. He's been thinking, I wish he'd shut up.
Yeah.
So I started to shut up. and he started to talk.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't say anything in the car, and he starts chatting. And I start to hold back in the meeting, and he starts to come into it. So I started to work on my own personality and work from my shadow side. And gradually, we did another Myers-Briggs when I took over the breakfast show with Charlie Charlton, just to look at our dynamics, who was high status, who was low status, what would the character of the show be like.
Yeah.
And I was an introvert. And I'd become, through the years, more aware, more sensitive, and just step back a bit. And you don't have to be on all the time. And I have to say, I can't stand comedy club dressing rooms because comedians are on all the time. Unbearable. And it's all me. And these are some of my best mates.
Yeah, of course.
But I just have to just go in, say me hellos, be nice to everyone. Then I get out and my head is in the performance and getting ready for the show and not talking about, my next career move and all this sort of stuff. That's all you'll hear in a comedy club dressing room, or people trying to outsmart each other. And I can't do that anymore.
So do you think that extroversion then came from a place of, I don't know, where do you think I came from? Because I think for me, my extroversion was, I was always full of energy.
Yeah, I was
full of energy. I think that's where it came
positivity.
from.
There was nothing wrong with it. It wasn't horrible, but it was a bit much.
Yeah.
And so I think the change certainly came from a sudden realization of the importance of awareness.
Yes.
And now I'm really conscious of how much awareness can change your business, can change how you deal with people, can change your charity, can change your own self-esteem.
Without a doubt, yeah.
And I just think it's a massive part of what I do now, communication skills and talking about it. I think just be aware of how you come across.
Yeah, of course.
Be really aware, because it's interesting. I was talking to, I don't know if you know Herb Kim, who runs all of the TED Talks.
Yeah, Thinking Digital.
Yes. Brilliant. Herb said, and we both noticed this, very often the best speakers at TED or TEDx are introverts. And he said, because usually the brash extrovert think they've got it nailed. And go, well, I don't need to put anything into this. And they're like Boris Johnson or Donald Trump, and they just crash in and they just, I don't care, I don't need to prepare, I talk like this. And that can be mildly irritating or a bit unprepared. Whereas the introvert has put more thought into it,
of course,
has put more preparation into it, and their trajectory towards the performance works better. And I've had the same, I did the last couple of years, I'm not doing it this year, but I did a confidence through comedy course where we got people in businesses to do stand-up, and it was a great experience, but it was interesting. The person who crashed in loud, brash, here I am, I'm ready, on week one, didn't move up the dial as much as the people who were quieter, nervous about it, aware, and they just had a more secure journey to the end point, which was a stand-up comedy gig. And they, I think, had probably a little bit of, everyone had a good night, but they had a better night because the journey was better, I think.
I wonder why that is. Is it do you think it's all down to preparation, or is it just a
lot of it is.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it is. And I think a lot of it is, it's about awareness. It's just about, how do I come across? How do I sound? How am I listening? A lot of it is about listening.
Yeah.
Listening to yourself.
Absolutely.
And listening to other people. And if you're just crashing in there and just not aware of anyone else, and I think it was Herb said, or in our conversation, we said, those tables, if there's one person who's brash and loud at the table, dominating the conversation, where it's a one conversation table, this is what I think, now what do you think? They're usually not the person you're going to enjoy listening to giving a talk.
Yeah, exactly.
Sometimes they might, but generally no.
I think the self-awareness thing is massive, but I've noticed in myself is that, as because of, I think, what I experienced, a lot of years of depression, and that forces you to be introspective and look at your life and go, what am I doing that's making this so painful, and what am I doing that's causing me to fail so often? You really do develop a level of self-awareness. But I found that as the years increased and as the self-awareness became more evident, I started to become more introverted. I think when I became more aware of who I was, I started to become more introverted because, as you say there, I started to see myself in other people and go, that's how I used to be. I used to be that brash, and I used to be that. When now, especially with Space, people, we've supported thousands of men now through Space. My job, people ask me what I do, and my job is just listening. I've always been on this end. And I think that's why when I've done podcasts previously, I've always never really felt entirely comfortable because I've never wanted to be the one who's delivering constantly. I've always wanted to be the one on this side who listens, digests.
I feel listened to today, and that's not always the case.
Good,
It's been an excellent experience.
Yeah.
You were there when I interviewed Jamie Lang.
Yes.
And you had a chat to him.
Yes, yeah.
And that was a great moment as well, by the way. But I have a saying that when I'm not speaking, because I like being a keynote speaker, that's my new thing.
Yeah.
I'm enjoying that, and I speak about speaking. I speak about how it's vital to tell your stories in the right way and get your stories out there.
Yeah.
So that's my talk. But when I'm the host, when I'm not the speaker, my job is to listen.
Yeah, exactly.
And I don't know if you remember, it was a tiny moment, but Jamie Lang asked me about the suit I was wearing.
Yes.
And I went, it's not me today,
Yeah.
it's you.
Yeah, exactly.
And you watch people like Claudia Winkleman, Graham Norton, who I think are exceptional.
Absolutely.
But they're brilliant at listening.
Yeah, they are.
They're brilliant at keeping that spot. They're so good, but they never steal the show in a way that is annoying.
Yes.
They've got a brilliant knack of pointing the spotlight in the right direction, and they'll fill the gaps brilliantly, and they'll tick it along superbly, and they'll gel people together, but they're constantly listening, and they're never crashing in.
Yeah.
They're never speaking over people. And that's when I'm the host, that's exactly what I try to do. It's not about me.
Yeah.
It is not about me at all. And I interviewed Alex Partridge before that at that same conference, and he was
fantastic.
And in the research, all of the stuff he was talking about was making me think about my own. Have I got it? I must have ADHD.
Yeah,
everybody's telling me I've got it in my own family.
Yeah.
So, but I thought I can't raise that at all. That's not my job. That's my job is to listen and to get people to be interested in his story and listen to his information.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think we lose maybe what people will sometimes do is think, what can I say? And they focus a lot more on output than what can I provide? What space can I provide for other people to then come forward? Just like you did with the introvert, that introverted guy you went to the prison with.
Yeah.
Your ability to step aside created a space for him to then open up himself and come forward. And I think quite often, referencing space again, but when people ask me, how can I help? I don't know what to say. And I'm worried I'm going to make them worse if I talk, but you don't need to talk.
Don't.
You don't. Because I think, just like you've, and I feel privileged that you've said you feel listened to, because it's one of the things I try really, really hard at is listening well, because I have throughout my life not been listened to by various people. And when you feel it, when you talk to somebody and you look, see straight through their eyes and
they've gone, they're somewhere else.
Yeah. They're glazed over, or they're thinking, what am I going to say next? But one of the most powerful things I think we can do for each other as people, and I think it'll set you apart in whatever you do in your life, is that if you hold a space for somebody to listen and engage and interact, and somebody really feels listened to, that stays with people for a long, long time.
Absolutely.
Stays with people for a long, long time.
I couldn't agree more.
So I think, probably as we're starting to get the stage of wrapping up, Alfie, I think one of the things we discussed earlier before the podcast was about your TEDx, changing lanes. Is that right? That's what it was called.
Yeah, and I never get asked to do it because which firm's going to say, come in, talk to people about why they should leave this job?
Exactly. Yeah.
However, this year I've been asked to do it twice. Once in Brussels to the EU, I did a version of it. And then I went to GlaxoSmithKline and did it because they are laying a lot of people off. They're looking after them, but the plant at Ulverston's closing. So they just wanted to reassure people that you can move on.
Yeah,
you can.
absolutely.
And I am the poster boy for it's never too late.
Yeah,
I didn't
absolutely.
start comedy till I was in my 30s. I didn't go on the radio till I was in my 40s. I didn't do art until I was in my 50s. And, you know, and now I'm doing speaking and stuff. And that's a brand new career.
It's amazing.
So, but it's never too late. It's possible to do stuff. And I know this because it's not just me. When I do that talk, when I talk about this, I get messages from people saying that was just the nudge I needed. And I get unexpected results. And, you know, I'm hopeful that things could change for some people, but I'm still surprised when it happens. And I had a woman from GlaxoSmithKline send me a direct message saying, I've wanted to be an artist for years. I've got all this pottery and I've got an Instagram page that I've been scared to activate. Will you be my first follower? Well, I was nearly crying reading that. You know, 1,000% yes.
Yeah, of course.
Just do it.
It's a privilege.
Just do it. Yeah.
Definitely. I think there's a phrase that I absolutely love now, and it's and I didn't understand it before, but now I use it in everything I do, especially when it comes to the work I'm involved in, and especially when it comes to business as well. It's about being the North Star. Are you familiar with that?
No, go on.
So being a North Star is about, you know, when you walk into a room, and you'll do this without thinking, by the way. So you walk into a room in a situation you're potentially worried about. You always look around the room to see how are we going to behave here? Who's the leader? Who's taking charge? Where do we go? So being the North Star is all about saying, well, okay, everybody's looking for everybody, so I'll be the North Star, and that I set the tone for everybody. So, for instance, when the lads come and use our services, I or Liam or one of the volunteers will all be the North Star. So when we come in, we talk very openly about our experiences, and that allows other people to then go, okay, right, that's the direction I travel as well. That's where I go. But I think I use that analogy because I think very much what you've done in your life, Alfie, is be that North Star. I think there'll be a lot of blokes, a lot of females out there, a lot of women who may be looking at their life and thinking, there's something I want to do that I'm not quite doing. There's somewhere I want to be where I'm not. And I think they could probably look at you as that North Star and think, well, you know, there's somebody who has put himself out there, being bold, and moved in that direction.
Yeah, and heavily underqualified for everything I've ever done.
As we all are.
But people go, well, you can do this, you can do that. And I'm adamant that all of the things I've done are skill-based. Talent is wildly overrated. It's just the graft.
Yeah.
Just put the graft in and see what happens. You'd be surprised. It's, you know, good coaches, good advisors, surround yourself with the right people and work bloody hard.
Absolutely.
And that will very often turn things into magic.
Absolutely. Alfie, thank you very much.
What an experience. Thank you.
No, I appreciate
Brilliant.
it. Thanks, mate.
Good, isn't he?